Hello, everyone. Let me just take a second to make some adjustments and get my notes ready. Let's see, let me mute myself down here so I don't hear myself echoing. Hi, Amy. Thank you for joining me live today. Okay. Let me get my notes going. Okay, I am going to take a sip of water and then begin. Today I wanted to talk to you about meal prepping. I get a lot of questions about people asking me to create videos of what I eat in a week and how to meal prep for a week, and we'll see what we can come up with for you. Amy, you're feeling better. I'm so happy. I hope you talk to your doctor. Okay, so in my two cookbooks, the Big Book of Mediterranean Diet Cooking and the Flexitarian Cookbook for Beginners, in the beginning here there are chapters on meal planning. And there are, in this book in particular, there are 3 different meal plans in here for people who want to lose weight, for people who are looking for heart health, and for people who just want to eat Mediterranean and be healthier. And then there are also a meal plan in the Flexitarian book, and they both go for 2 weeks, and they teach you, it's a well-rounded plan of what to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then where you can make leftovers. So some dishes are easier to use as leftovers than others. So the basics of meal prepping in my meal planning and meal prepping in my mind are, I have some notes over here, so I'm going to read. First of all, plan what you want to eat that week so you know what foods you need to make. Then make some staples in advance that you can mix and match during the week. And then to store your food in glass containers in the refrigerator. And you want to store them in glass containers because plastic isn't as healthy. There's studies about plastic seeping into your food and it doesn't keep things as long. So you want to get some glass containers. I have some round ones in various sizes. I have some square ones. They fit easily into the refrigerator. You can stack them up and things like that. And they come in all different sizes so that you can keep sauces in some, you can keep vegetables in others. So what I like to do when I say to make some staples in advance, this is what I mean. You can make a batch of whole grains earlier in the week. So sometimes you pick a week where you have a lot of time. So maybe it's Sunday and you want to prep for the week that's coming. Make a big batch of whole grains that you can then keep in the refrigerator, and then you can pull from that during the week and just heat it up in other contexts. I like to make big sheet pans of vegetables. You can do 1 or 2 at a time and cut up a bunch of vegetables. Like this time of year, there's lots of root vegetables. They hold up well to baking in the oven. Chop them up. You can do some peppers and onions and the different squashes and eggplant and zucchini and all different kinds of things. You just toss them in a little olive oil. Keep it real simple, salt and pepper. Bake them in the oven, and then you can keep them in glass containers. And then during the week, if you need a quick meal, you can grab some of the grains, you can grab some of the vegetables, maybe you can heat it up in a pan on top of the stove, maybe add a little sauce to it. I like to make a vat of tomato sauce. Back when I was a student, I used to make double batches of tomato sauce. So we would make spaghetti one night and we would have the tomato sauce, and then there would be a lot of it left over and I would freeze it. So then the next week, all I had to do was thaw that out and then heated it back up on the stove instead of going through the process of making the whole batch again. And there's things that really can save you time. And tomato sauce can go on lots of different things. So one of the things I like to do is to make stuffed peppers. So when I make stuffed peppers, which are bell peppers, I find, in various colors, bell peppers, the kind that have like a nice flat bottom, because sometimes on the bottom they'll have like 3 sections and sometimes they'll have 4, and the ones that have 4 kind of stand up easier. You want to get ones that can stand up in a pot. So what I do is I parboil them before I bake them in the oven. So you can do that earlier in the week. You can parboil your peppers and then you can pull them out of the fridge, stuff them with some of your grains, maybe open a can of beans and stuff them with that, or put some of your vegetables in. You could use orzo, whatever grain or pasta or something that you're using to stuff it. Then you can bake them in the oven and then pour a little tomato sauce on them and you have a whole meal there. And it doesn't take as much time because you sort of done half of the work first. So that's what the kind of things that I like to do. So for example, just this week, one of my favorite meals. It's a vegetarian meal that we like to make. It's a eggplant, potato, and tomato bake. So when I do that, I'd like to parboil the potatoes beforehand because potatoes take a lot longer to cook than, say, tomatoes or eggplant. So I'll parboil them. You could do that in advance, on your Sunday or whatever day you choose, and then pull them out of the fridge. And then I make layers of eggplant and potatoes and tomato slices, or you could even use, we didn't have any, it's not really the season for tomatoes, so we didn't really have any fresh tomatoes this time that we made it. So we used a can of the plum tomatoes, the whole ones, and just sort of chunk them up a little bit, squash them down a little bit so they were still chunky, and make layers of that in a casserole dish. Sprinkle some cheese on top, stick it in the oven, bake it until it gets kind of brown and bubbly, and you have dinner there. And I usually make a big sheet pan, not a sheet pan, like a big casserole dish of that, and then we'll eat it twice. Sometimes it's really good for lunch the next day, or even I've had it for breakfast. Or I'll take a little bit of that again, and then maybe I'll make an egg on the side and kind of combine it together. So there's all kinds of ways that you can save time by meal prepping and thinking creatively about your ingredients. Because when you think of a restaurant menu, like we have a diner near us that has a menu that it has to be like 27 pages long. You can't believe they have all this food, but it's the same ingredients reused in different ways. So if you think of a restaurant menu like that, they'll have chicken dishes and they'll have beef dishes and they'll have pasta dishes, but it's really the same ingredients mixed and matched in different ways, different sauces, different preparations, whether you want to bake it or fry it or boil it or whatever you want to do to it. So start thinking about your meals that way. If you really need to save time, you can prepare in advance. Get your favorite ingredients. Maybe do something fun, like try a new whole grain every week. So maybe one week you make farro, and that week you're bringing in farro and it's something new that your family is trying. Or maybe the next week you make brown rice, or the next week you make quinoa, and you mix and match it that way. And those grains can be used in cereal bowls, they can be used in lunches, you can toss some into your salads, you can use them as a side dish on your plate for dinner. There's all kinds of ways you can use them. So I hope that helps for people who are asking about meal prep and how to make your meals stretch throughout the week and have ideas for the whole week. My next topic, I have an article. Let me take a sip of water. I have a blog series on my website, donnaderosa.com, that's all about elegance. So since we're always talking about food and the Mediterranean diet here, I wanted to talk about, I have one particular article in there. It's called How an Elegant Woman Eats. So I wanted to give you some tips. I'm not going to go through the whole article. I'll put a link down to it below if you want to read the article yourself, or if you want to read that whole series. I'll put a link to both the series and the article. But I wanted to pull out a few key points because I know a lot of people follow me, and I'm on my own weight loss journey as well. You want to lose weight because you want to be healthy on the Mediterranean diet, but you also want to lose weight. So some of the things in that article that I wrote about is that it's just important how you eat as what you eat. So you want to eat slowly. You want to take time with your meals. You don't want to be rushed. You don't want to throw something in the microwave and then stand over the sink and try to eat something before you're running out to go to work in the morning. You want to just take your time. Maestro says, how long on average before I have to throw out the leftovers? Oh, that's a good question. I would say it depends. If you're going to if you make something like lasagna, you can freeze that really well and you can keep it in the freezer for a while before you eat it, a week maybe. But if you're keeping things in the fridge, I don't like to keep things in the fridge longer than about 3 or 4 days. And you'll be able to tell if it starts to get a little off. Sometimes it'll start to break down and get watery, or it might start to smell, or it might start to grow little fuzzy things on it. So you don't want to eat anything that looks a little off. My general rule is 3 days. So how you eat is just as important as what you eat. So if you want to elevate your lifestyle and be healthier, you have to start at the table and think about actually making time for meals, sitting down, maybe setting an elegant place setting. It doesn't have to be super fancy china. Just make sure you have a napkin and you have your all the utensils that you need in your plate, and maybe a side plate for salad or something, and your glasses on the table, and just make it an experience. Maybe have a nice table cover on. I'm always buying table covers. We have a big old wooden table that we've had in the family for years. So I always buy the kind of table covers. They're vinyl and they have like a flannel backing, just to protect the table because it's old and it's a little beat up. But I get them in all different colors. You can get them seasonally, or you can get cloth table covers that you can just throw in the wash, if somebody spills something on it. But the vinyl ones, they wipe down really, really easily. And, like right now I have one that has like fall colors and fruits and things on it. And, sometimes at Christmas I'll buy one that has snowflakes. And in the summer I'll have one that has lemons. It just brightens up the kitchen. And so you're thinking seasonally about your decorations as well as seasonally about your food. And it's just like a happy time. And then sometimes I will pull out the good china. The other day I was making something fancy and I thought, you know what, we're going to pull out the good china dishes. I made a whole chicken and I thought I'm going to pull out my mother's old china. And when my family members start to come into the kitchen and they see that the good china is out, they get excited because they're like, oh, what did she make? It's going to be a little special time. So don't always save your good china, excuse me, don't always save your good china, your good dishes, your good glasses and things only for Christmas or, only for Thanksgiving or something. Pull them out once in a while. You don't want to use them all the time because then they're not special anymore. But don't reserve them just for that, 3 times a year when you use them. Pull them out at least once a month and, make a special dinner for everyone. Another key point about how an elegant woman eats is to eat in moderation. So I'm always talking about moderation is the key to the Mediterranean diet. So you want to eat until you're satisfied. You don't want to eat until you're stuffed. Think about how you feel on Thanksgiving when you sit around and it's just sort of tradition to stuff ourselves, just like we would the turkey, we stuff ourselves. You don't want to leave the dinner table like that all the time. You want to eat until you're satisfied, not until you're still hungry, just until you're not hungry anymore. And it takes some practice to learn what that feels like instead of eating too much. So just my general rule of thumb is if you would normally fill your plate with however much food, just take like about a quarter of it away and eat a little bit less. And that is probably still plenty to keep you satisfied. You're not going to leave the table hungry, but you're not going to be stuffed. And that little bit that you take away each meal is going to add up over time and be a little bit less calories. And that's how you learn moderation. And then maybe you'll get used to that portion size, and then you can take away a little bit more as your stomach shrinks and you start to get used to not eating as much food. Another thing I learned when I was living in California, I met a chef who was from Venice, Italy. And the way he set up his restaurant, you didn't just order a meal and everything came on the plate. Like when you go to a diner and it comes with soup and salad and then just there's tons of food on the plate. His restaurant was set up to where you had to eat in courses, and it was just the natural way that they eat in Italy. I'm going to take a sip of water before I cough. So you might get an appetizer. And then you get your primi course. And the primi course in Italy is that's when you get your pasta or risotto or something, and it's small. That's how they end up eating small portion sizes of things like pasta, where we eat large portion sizes of pasta. We make it our whole meal. They make it a little first course. And then they might move on to fish or maybe a little meat or whatever is going to be their protein for that meal. And then at the end of the meal, it sort of adds up to having a whole satisfying meal, and it takes time. So you're relaxing, you're enjoying the company that you're with. You're having conversation, you might have a little wine. You might put your fork down for a while because the next course didn't come out yet. You have time to just let it sink in. So when you eat more slowly like that, you fill up. Your brain has time to catch up to what your stomach is doing. And it's an overall satisfying experience because you're enjoying yourself. You're enjoying the company that you're with. You're not rushed. You're not stuffing yourself. And it's just an elegant way to eat dinner. So take your lesson from the Italians. And also, excuse me, in my book, The Big Book of Mediterranean Diet Cooking, there are lots of tips on how to eat in here as a Mediterranean lifestyle. And they're all things like I've just talked about, like moderation, slowing down, portion sizes. So if you have that book, or if you want to go online and look at it on Amazon, you can probably read some of the beginning chapters in the little sample section and just, peruse around in there and see if you pick up any tips. Let's see. I'm looking at my notes now. So we already talked about setting an elegant table. So I think that's all I have on the subject of elegance. In that article in particular about how an elegant woman eats, there's also some tips in there about etiquette. I don't want to go through them here, but I'll put the link down below where you can read more about it. And like I said, that's a whole series on elegance. There's how an elegant woman behaves on social media, how an elegant woman spends her day. I think when I start up my podcast for this season again, when I do season 2, I'm going to base it around elegance. Because the Italians have a concept also they call la bella figura, and it's all about the beautiful figure and the sort of your personal branding of how you show yourself up in the world. And that's all about elegance. And I think you'll find that series interesting. So I usually end this presentation by talking about what I'm reading and what I'm watching on TV, but I'm still doing the same thing. I'm still on the same book, Sinners by Pat Cadigan. I've gotten a little further into it. It's a big fat book, so I'm going to be reading that for a while. And I just finished, well, I'm almost finished. I have 2 episodes left of season 2 of Counterpart, which is on Amazon Prime. So when I'm finished that, maybe I'll talk about that next week and the overall arc of that story. But that's all I'm doing right now. So unless anybody has any questions, it is game day here. Let me look in my in the chat here. Thank you for everyone who has joined me live today. And I am glad that you're feeling better, Amy. And I am going to sign off for the week. I hope you have a beautiful day. If you are a football fan, go Eagles. And I will talk to you next week. Bye.